Really appreciate you hopping on today. And first off, congrats on the recent raise.
Appreciate it, man.
It's really cool to see. And, let's just begin here. Former D1 athlete, similar to myself. The transition is it's unique.
Yeah.
Curious to hear your story, how it went, the challenges, and then really the journey into Status Pro, and we can start to dig into it after that.
Nah, I appreciate that, man. So, first of all, I appreciate you having me on. This is dope. It's always fun to talk to people who have transitioned, former athletes that understand that, because it's a unique experience. So for me, background and context from Baltimore, Maryland. Grew up with sports being an important part of my life, right? Sports in school afforded me a lot of different opportunities. I got a scholarship to a private school in high school that I wouldn't even be close to affording. But because of my athletic ability, coupled with, me doing what I'm supposed to do academically, I got that opportunity, which opened me to a new world. And then obviously went on to play college football. That was a journey in itself. I did the prep school route, then went to Maryland, coach left, so then had to end up walking on for the new coach. Third on the depth chart, true freshman year, started off as sixth. After that year, coach wanted me to come back for another spring for a scholarship, couldn't afford school, so I went in JUCO, did the JUCO thing, ended up becoming the number 2 ranked JUCO quarterback in the country, then signed to Western Kentucky, and then got to Western Kentucky. Bobby Petrino went to Louisville. Ended up playing for Jeff Brom, played a little bit, was a backup to a quarterback, Brandon Doughty, that ended up getting drafted, who's still a close friend today. But I say all that to say, even my athletic journey was something that, was a lot of unexpected obstacles that I had to navigate through. And what I didn't know was that those experiences would end up shaping and just building skills that would be very relevant in what I'm doing today. But as you can imagine, after bouncing around, transferring, especially playing quarterback, finally thinking you got your shot, but then having, a coaching change, and then finishing your career, realizing that you were, a number 2 quarterback at a Division I school behind a pro, and that you weren't going to go to the league. It was just like a wake up call to realize, like, man, I just spent my whole life trying to navigate these waters to achieve a certain goal. And I didn't obtain it. And that's tough. You know what I mean? Because it's like you that experience, the waking up early, the sacrifice on your body, the sacrifice on internships and other careers because you're trying to pursue this one dream. You kind of have to be hyper-focused in that way to have hyper success in anything. And then when it comes to a screeching halt, it's kind of like, okay, what do I do now? So for me, I didn't really know what I was going to do after school. I knew I was smart. I knew I was ambitious. But I had to mourn the loss of something I had done my whole life. And that was something that was tough, that for about, I would say, a year and a half, I really didn't know, what I was going to do. I was working in the mall, literally at a kiosk, just figuring it out, trying to figure out what career I would go into. But I certainly needed a break from sports. So transition from sports, my first real opportunity was as a temp position at Morgan Stanley. So totally different field, went into finance, did that for about a year, learned pretty quickly that finance wasn't for me and I wanted to get back into sports, but on the business side. And then from there, I ended up, getting an internship at the NFLPA, which was amazing because I got to learn the business side of sports, learn about the union, learn about the league, really just learn about the construct of the business that is football and then professional sports as a whole, right? But something in me, I just knew that, I wanted to be able to eat what I killed. I wanted to be able to be disruptive. I was still ambitious. I was still that person who wanted to contribute to the sport, to the industry I loved my whole life. And within having that, you're trying to find your identity and develop a new skill set so that you can contribute and do that. And entrepreneurship was something that I just fell into, which really, was the perfect fit, but I didn't know. In full transparency, I was supposed to get a job that fell through. And parallel to that, I had met these guys that had showed me mixed reality and the headset and said, hey, we feel like this can help athletes train, but we're not athletes. And I just honestly spent a bunch of time in between jobs trying to work with these guys to build something compelling. And we ended up building a training app, which helped teams practice against holograms, which was useful because during OTAs, they're not allowed to line up against one another. So we signed the Baltimore Ravens to their first, to our first deal, first customer. And from there, I decided to kind of focus on this full time. That was around the time that I met Hawk. And we kind of hit it off on our vision. Lo and behold, signed a few more teams, make a few more connections in the space, go to Facebook campus to see what they're doing with Quest, sparks this idea of building an NFL game, go back to Hawk and say, hey, man, let's do this together. And the rest is history, and StatusPRO is born. And what I'll say is, learning on the fly and having to adjust and respond and be reactive and be agile was just so aligned with what I experienced as an athlete that naturally I just was good at it. I just had a natural comfort for being uncomfortable and all the variables that come into entrepreneurship, because my athletic career was even that way with bouncing around and transferring. And now over the last 7 years, I've just really focused on the tactical, getting smart, and the technology side of it, learning how to build a business, really learning in real time. And truly, man, I tell everyone my experiences as an athlete, the mindset of a quarterback, all the things that we learn in building a team and how you operate is really the main experience that I pull from, coupled with everything I've gone through over the last 7 years, obviously, right? And having some amazing mentors. But it plays such a huge role in just who I am, where we are as a company, obviously, because Hawk has his experiences as an athlete as well. But for me, I tell people that my unique journey in sports is what prepared me for this, right? And I will honestly say I think I'm way better at this than I was at football, and I was pretty decent at football. But this has been something that's just been amazing. I never would have expected in the sense of what we're doing, how we're doing it, but the way it happened organically, the way it flowed, I genuinely believe that I was prepped for it, but I had to take the time to look within self, kind of let things unfold to go down this track, if that makes sense. So I know that was a lot, but wanted to just kind of
it's amazing.
my perspective on it.
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, it's cool to see you really had the startup journey before the startup journey even began. And when you look back now, it makes so much sense. It's clear. But at the time, you're probably like, man, what the hell is going on? Transferring coaches. But now it makes sense. You're like, man, that was the best experience ever.
Night and day, man.
Curious, so as you started building this then, right? Okay, you meet Hawk, you get a few teams. How did you go about the learning and not only that, but the actual scaling of the company now? You obviously just raised that round that we talked about. So now it's not just, hey, I have a cool idea, I'm building and putting dots together, but now we're hiring people, we're trying to do this at scale and delegating. What did that look like?
Yeah. That's been a journey. I think, first of all, again, pulling back on the quarterback aspect of things, always being self-aware, evaluating where you can get better, being eager to learn, having to learn on the fly was just something, again, that came natural, right? I got to know any and all parts of what's going on in the offense. It's kind of similar to knowing any and all parts of going on with the business, and then just being hyper aware of what you're doing right and doing wrong. And same thing as you build a business. And to your point around transferring and being in different environments, same thing when you're trying to figure out who's best for the team, what investors you should go to, how you respond to being told no. I would say that's probably the most, probably the trait that transferred over to business the most, because of sports, I got comfortable just putting myself out there. When I'm in JUCO, you're emailing coaches, you're trying to get that other opportunity, and you're just when people tell you no, you're not going to get discouraged. You're going to keep going. The entrepreneurship journey is the same way, right? We've been told no way more times than we've been told yes, but because we're so persistent, again, Hawk in his own right, in his own way, for his own reasons. But for me, the bouncing around, transferring, the betting on myself, I got reps at it for 5 years, 6 years before I stepped into this role. So I would say what really helped was just this hunger for knowledge and desire to get better, and understanding what it means to engulf yourself in something and truly try to learn it and admit what you know and embrace what you don't know. The understanding of you're only as good as the people around you. Again, sports. So being able to surround myself with amazing mentors who had successful businesses, being willing to put myself out there to ask questions. It's being naive and not having an ego and not having a reputation actually played the benefit to me, because I just had no shame in asking any type of question or approaching a specific person and getting their perspective on things. And I think coming into a business, especially in an emerging category, to where there is no blueprint and you're the first to do it, coupled with being a person who had no really professional experiences and really didn't know what they were doing, it actually married well, because I just was open-minded to learn different things and to have different conversations. And I wasn't too jaded, right? Of feeling like, oh, this needs to be this way. The naivete in that played a benefit, I think. And I think investors and the team saw it. I was persistent on trying to partner with people. When me and Hawk first got together, it took us 2 years before we partnered together, right? And I just kept showing up, kept updating them, telling them hey, man, we could do this together. And I think that just carried over from sports. Same with our executive team. I think about a couple of our executives right now who first time we hit them up, they didn't respond, or I tried to find another way to get to them. And then when I got to them, I stayed patient and just kept pursuing. And then same thing on investment, right? Like, you know, when we got a grant from Meta, they told us no. When at GV at first, they told us, well, we don't think we should lead. And then eventually you stayed the course and those people came around. So it was truly just being open-minded, man, and just being resilient. And again, surrounding myself with amazing people and being willing to listen. And I always say this is a cliche thing that if you listen to a podcast that I'm on, that you always hear from me around my mentor telling me, fall in love with the problem, not your solution. So for me, it was just about, I want to disrupt sports and I want to do it with amazing people. And I truly want to make this space better. So I don't think I know everything. And I think that mindset naturally, people saw it, people felt it. I wouldn't go away. People respected that. And I think, you know, we did everything I said that we would do, right? Or that I said that I would do in my part of contributing to StatusPRO being where it is. And that just speaks volumes, because a lot of people actually just don't do that, right? But, you know, it's what we expect as athletes, right? Like if your coach tells you to do something or you have a certain standard, it's like you're held accountable. It's like, did you do it or did you not? And if you're going to be looked on film 2 hours after the practice to see if you did what you were supposed to do. And I think that creates a unique like lens and comfort with accountability and admitting when you do something wrong or do something right. Because I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this, a play where you know you messed up. And you know you're like on play 5 and your play is on play 7 and you're in this film room and you're cringing and you're like, let me get ahead of this. And before your coach digs in, you, I was like, I know I should have did this to try to lessen the blow, right? But it's like that translates, man. It's like that's like what it's like running a business. Like, yo, we messed up. Okay, cool. So I kind of take that same approach to my team, and they respect that because they know I'm not going to be like, well, it's you guys. I always try to, all right, I did this, or I should have did this, which is no different to I put the guy in a bad position. I should have slid the protection. That's on me. And it's like honing in to really understand how those skills can help you in other areas. And that's just something I think I've been fortunate to do a decent job of.
Yeah, and it's funny, persistence with the with also the trait of a little bit of ignorance, where you don't really know, like you don't know how tough something's going to be, is a good combination. And then again, you build the right people around you. So it's cool to hear it from your perspective. And you know, curious, I mean, Lamar Jackson, the face of this now, was that a similar story to get him to be involved? Like what did that story look like? Because obviously I'm sure that was a big accelerant for you guys.
For sure. It got the attention of the NFL and a lot of different people. And to your point, it was about me showing up consistently. The people who connected me with Lamar were people who worked within the Ravens organization that had a chance to get to know me just from me showing up and kind of, you know, just working on the training product they were using. So when I inquired about Lamar, they were like, oh, Troy's dope. Every time he comes to the facilities, he's happy. He speaks to everyone. We'll connect you with him. And, you know, it was a long conversation because we didn't have, you know, he wasn't taking any opportunities. This was his first MVP year, and he wasn't really speaking to anyone about business while he was locked in. And then all of a sudden, it was a random opportunity to meet him at Pro Bowl. I flew out not knowing if we would get the meeting, and we did with his manager, Felicia Jones, and she believed in the vision. And again, that naive but persistent but confident mindset, like that's obviously them. He knew when he got in the league that he was going to defy the odds and do what everyone thought he wouldn't do. They loved the product. Obviously, we showed them the demo and they believed in it. But it was certainly that. And then, you know, they also weren't necessarily guaranteed to sign and say yes to us when we first made the offer to them. It was some time, and it took a process, and it took us iterating the contract to make sure all parties felt comfortable. But I think they felt that we genuinely just wanted to do something dope, and it wasn't about getting over. It wasn't about anything but building something disruptive, and they took a bet on us too. It was very much consistent with that whole story, and that's why I say like so much of that experience and transferring and just my athletic journey, and that, to your point, that ignorance, it paid a benefit early because everybody was like, man, this guy won't go away. I think that's when people see me now or think of me now, I think that's just something that they respect. Like, hey, he gonna give it all he got. And I think so much of this is that, knowing that we can't control the outcome, but you just want to make sure you're with people who are going to do any and everything they can do for it to be successful. And I think people understand that.
Give us the balance of the gaming side versus the training side of the business, because obviously Lamar, I believe that was sort of the inflection point of also the game. And I know there's
Yeah.
separate.
So the training side is where we started, and obviously it gave us some credibility within the space because it's not easy to work with clubs. And I think the NFL respected that we were able to contribute to clubs in that way and make athletes and teams better. But obviously, as a startup, we got to focus. And building a game is different from building a training product. There's a certain level of fun that you got to get into a game, and that's a totally different mindset from a creative perspective and development process. So once we saw that the larger venture opportunity really was to build a gaming product, because that is the number one use case for VR, right? Still, even to this day, we had the transition, and we were actually able to leverage the training product to help build the game and accelerate that timeline for the demo. So the fact that we had the training product actually is what allowed us to make a demo so quick for the NFL, for Meta, for people to see it, feel it, touch it. And as a business today, we're 100% focused on the consumer product in the gaming, on the gaming side. I do think that there's interest in building out this ecosystem that can be a one-stop shop for all things first-person sports, because there's naturally synergy between both, even though there's nuances that make a training product different from a game. Football is football, right? So if I'm playing a game and I'm going against cover two and I'm just playing against you, Andrew, and we're competing, if I'm a quarterback, that's cover two is cover two, like maybe the speed is a little different, or the way they disguise it is a little different because one's gamified for non-pros and the other is trying to prep you to go out on a Sunday. But there's that natural synergy. So I think what you'll start to see from us is, how do you become a sports ecosystem to where no matter what your engagement is with the sport, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a coach, whether you're a fan, whether you're in media, our product is something that can bring value to you, right? To enhance your experience. I do think we're starting to think about things that way. I do think that is the future of sports and XR. I think you have to do that, just given the fact that this is an emerging category and people have to have incentive to go to it. And we're being intentional about how we think about our roadmap over the next 3 to 5 years, so that it is something that can service everyone, all sports fans, right? Now you got to focus on your target demographic for sure. I'm not saying you don't, but I do think that what we're doing in XR is just uniquely positions us to be able to service more than one type of fan versus other traditional, content, gaming content, even media content plays. So I think, we feel confident about our strategy, and you're going to see some exciting things in the future.
And what's the macro climate currently of, and I'm going to bucket them into different areas, but AR, VR, and XR, what's that space looking like? What are some of the main things being talked about in we'll call it that niche of the industry?
Yeah, obviously the hottest thing out right now is just the Vision Pro and Apple coming to the space. Apple is Apple, right? They control our phones, our wrists with their watches. I'm on a Mac right now. So I think that whenever they create a product, you see that excitement in the space. Obviously, Meta has done an amazing job with the Quest device and continuing to make that affordable and bring that cost down so people can go out and experience that. It's been one of the top selling gifts during the holidays for the last few years. I think you'll continue to see that trend. And like I said, with Apple being there now, I think it puts even more eyeballs on the space that make people go and get a Quest headset as a result of just taking a more affordable option. But to break those out, I think VR is going to be heavy gaming, heavy simulation, heavy fully immersive experiences that people want. And it's going to be the only way in which you can have that like first person experience of any fantasy you may have, whether that be you wanting to play in a sport or wanting to see what it's like to be Iron Man, right? I think that, that's a great medium to do that. And it engages you in a different way. It's more experiential than traditional gaming, PC gaming, mobile gaming, console gaming. I think AR is going to be the thing that becomes ubiquitous, really, if just being honest. I think that's why you're seeing the headsets kind of have both functionalities, because I do think that the mass adoption is going to happen when I can be in my real world and then see kind of like merge my digital and my physical world, right, in that way. And I think we know that, and we're responding to that, and are thinking about ways to have experiences that kind of like segue you into the fully immersive. So how do we meet you where you are in your world and bring you passively, intermediately there with AR, right? And then fully there when you're like, I want to dive deep all into this thing, right? And I think you see that with just Vision Pro. I think Google and Samsung announced something that's coming out that's public. You obviously got Meta with the pass-through capabilities and them doubling down on that and the AR glasses. So I think that we're still in the very, very early days, man. I think that, 5 years from now, honestly, you're going to see VR, XR experiences just as hot as AI is today, right? Because I do think that in 10 years, you hear a lot of these CEOs of the Magnificent Seven companies say that phones and laptops won't exist. And I do think that because of technology, it's going to see it in our lifetime. But it's just a matter of who's going to get it right, what experience is going to be the first thing to drive people to it. And I think sports is the perfect medium, which is why I think StatusPRO is going to be wildly successful. And you won't be able to tell this story in XR as a whole without
I agree.
us.
I think robots, we'll just call it AR, VR, XR, mixed reality, whatever is like, those are two things. I think that will be the next, AI, Web3, NFTs, like, well, it'll be that one of those years. Curious, just any other trends, we'll just call it in sports now as a whole, that you're paying attention to from a macro, or you think is interesting, and maybe it ties into StatusPRO, maybe it doesn't, but you just find it interesting.
I mean, I just referenced it naturally. AI, how does it impact the sports world from a evaluation standpoint, from an experience for the fan standpoint, from a are you there? Can you hear me? Sorry, it just froze on my side. So from an AI standpoint, I think, how's it going to affect the fan? How's it going to affect player evaluation? How's it going to affect data? That's very much top of mind. So actually, I'll say those two things: AI specifically, as well as just skeletal optical tracking data. I think that those two things marry together nicely. And for people who may not know what I mean by that, so AI in the sense of, how can you prepare for, for an opponent based on, different AI algorithms and them telling you what you expect to see in a game day? How can it help you evaluate a player in scouting? How can it help you prevent injury? I mean, there's so many different things that it'll be able to impact. And then when I say skeletal optical tracking data, I mean literally being able to get tracking of players from the game and it inform you in ways that it hasn't in the past. So you see it today with next gen stats around speed and how fast a player is moving. But as you get more skeletal and track their entire body, same thing. It's going to help you with injuries. It's going to help you with fan experiences and recreating situations. I mean, it's going to impact the game in so many different ways and truly change the way we engage with it. So for me, those are two things that for StatusPRO and personally, I'm interested just to keep an eye on, because sports is the perfect medium to drive innovation, even though the leagues tend to be a little bit more conservative because they have an amazing business model that makes them a ton of money. I do think that there's this new mindset of like, but we also need to be innovative and we also need to be cutting edge, because that's what the younger generation wants, right? Like you have two different types of fans: the traditional old fans that watch linear TV and just want to get with their friends and watch the game. And then you got, Gen Z, Gen Alpha who engage with it a little differently. And I think the leagues are trying to find that blend. And I think that tech is going to help pave the way for what that looks like.
It's going to be exciting and interesting to see how that all plays out, especially with just even seeing this potential Amazon NBA deal. And anyway, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a convergence happening, man. I mean, sports is one of the most highly sought after, businesses that investors and private equity groups and companies are fighting for, right? Like you just saw Apple pay $1 billion for the FIFA TV rights to prep for the World Cup, right? You obviously see the numbers that the NFL do with $2 billion a year YouTube is paying for Sunday ticket rights, right? So what's going to happen is people want this content because it's consistent, it's global. I mean, it has such a mass appeal and draws such a diverse crowd. I don't know if there's anything else that can compare in that way, right? To where you have all different types of people that are interested in one thing, right? So as that continues to happen, it's exciting for the leagues, obviously, because they'll print money. And then for us, it's like, okay, well, we got to keep our eyes and ears open because, those bigger companies are going to continue to think about, okay, how can we be disruptive? How can we differentiate? And I do think XR is going to be a space that people double click on soon. So we just got to keep our first movers advantage and keep building. And I think that we'll fit in nicely into the equation.
So what's next? You raised this round. I know you touched on a few things. Is it new sports? Is it just going into product, scaling globally?
Yes, certainly make NFLPA era better. I mean, it's not, it's an amazing product. Our team has done an amazing job. Shout out to our creative teams, our marketing teams, our product teams. But we have so much more room to get better because we actually now have data and we've learned, right? We were a studio that never built a game before in a remote environment. And if people take a step back and just think about that and then look at the product, it's incredible. So I think that now that we have learnings, that we got our feet under our belt, it's like we're going into our junior year, in some ways, if you really think about it, it's like, okay, I got a feel for this now, right? So you're going to see some changes to help make it a better experience for our fan on the NFL Pro Era side, and then certainly more sports. Our goal is to own the space of sports. Like when you think sports, you think Status Pro and XR. We want to define the future of how people consume sports. So you will see us start to dabble in other things. And I think that it's opportunities that marry nicely with what we've done with the NFL. And it's going to develop a unique ecosystem to where, again, we can offer the fan a different experience in a different way to prepare them for again,
Very
what the
cool.
future looks like.
What's website, socials? Where can people learn more about Status Pro or get in touch?
Yeah, man. So find us at www.status.pro. Very simple on the website side. Same thing on Instagram, TikTok, status.pro. I am currently off social.
God bless you.
But
That's awesome.
when I'm back on social,
I'm sure your life is so much better now.
Listen, don't get me started. That's a whole different conversation.
Give me the 30 seconds of it, though. Like why, how it's done.
Yeah, 30 seconds is, I was listening to a podcast, Jay Shetty, listened to it very frequently. And he talked about how we process 74 gigabytes of information a day. And then he said, if you don't know what that is, that's 16 movies with all different characters, so much different content, so much different emotion. And when you're trying to run a company and trying to do something at scale, being focused, being intentional with your time is essential, right? And as we talked about that journey of evolution that needs to happen for me personally as a co-founder, as a CEO of the business, I've been really honing in on how do I focus more? How do I enhance my ability to just be in a more positive, efficient space? And I've started to limit any and all distractions that honestly just aren't good for my energy and aren't good for me focusing on the main thing. And social media obviously has its benefits, but when I look at the delta of what it trains, which is distraction ultimately, I was like, I'm good. It's not a necessity for me right now. The business has a Status Pro page, I can post on LinkedIn when I need to, and it's not the same distraction. So let me continue to train myself by just removing myself for a little bit. And it's been night and day, bro. I'm seriously, man. It's like I'm just honed in more. It's less distract. Like your brain's not wandering into different things and pulling you away from what you're trying to do, right? And then we're all human, right? So if you're doing work and then like you turn on your phone and your boys are overseas somewhere, you think like, man, what am I doing? Like, am I doing something wrong? And it's just that thought alone, it affects you, right? And that's just something that I'm just wanting to limit. So I decided to step off.
I love that.
Man.
You might have just accelerated my process because I slowly started to drip off. Now I'm at like 2, and I'm like. So anyway, I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, you got professionals that need it. That's a part of their job. I get it. But for us who are building, for us who don't necessarily need it, and that's the thing you got to really ask yourself, like, what am I using this for, right? Like if it's an intention, cool. But you got to figure out the barriers, man. And, we're athletes, so you understand the opportunity of drilling or overworking something to build a new habit. I'm not saying I'll be gone forever, but I do think getting used to not being on it. Then when I do come back, say I can only, telling myself I only check it on Wednesdays, like I would be in a rhythm to actually be able to do that versus like, well, I want to be on it less, but it's still there and I can click on it and, I don't really adopt the habit I want to adopt. I just say, you know what, let me just cut it.
I love
it's been great.
Well, Troy, appreciate you coming on and the perspective, and man, you just put me on something completely different that I'm about to go through my phone right now and start. I already used the black and gray scale. I'm like, oh shoot, man, that TikTok app. What am I using it for? It's got to get deleted.
Yeah, man. Nah, again, it's been helpful, bro. I'm not saying this for everybody, but for me, with all the different things we got going on, I know what I need to know. And it's cool because when I'm out of touch, I got people that's on social to be like, oh, did you hear about this? I'm like, nah, catch me up. And it's a way to connect with person. Now they feel like they're telling you a story and I'd rather hear it from them than they see it on the screen, bro, to be honest.
That is cool.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I love it. Well, good stuff. And Status Pro, excited to watch what you guys got next now that you're locked in.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you having me. This is awesome. Again, everyone, status.pro. On all socials, on our website. Go get NFL Pro Era. It's a great game. And tag @Hawk if you get it. Tell them I told y'all can play them head to head if you get it. So
love it.